Welcome to another thrilling adventure as we travel from the bustling city of Delhi to the town of Pithoragarh in the foothills of the Himalayas, and then onwards to Dharchula, a small township nestled of the banks of the Kali River at the Indo-Nepal border. With a mix of excitement and some apprehension, we began our journey from the Anand Vihar bus stand in Delhi. After hastily loading our rucksacks onto a bus bound for Pithoragarh and ensuring that all the rucksacks were secure, we settled in for an exhausting 500-kilometer overnight journey to Pithoragarh. As we started off, a young fellow traveler from an adjacent bus waved us goodbye, his wide eyes and a hesitant smile lighting up his face. By noon the next day we arrived in Pithoragarh, tired, dusty and drained. In hindsight, an overnight halt at Tanakpur would have made the journey easier. That evening, from our hotel balcony, we watched Pithoragarh bathed in the golden glow of the setting sun, with the Panchachuli peaks shrouded in the fading evening light. After a day's rest in Pithoragarh, spent exploring the local market and enjoying some delicious parathas and shol bhaturas, we boarded a bus to Dharchula, 90 kilometers away. The bus made several halts along the way, giving us an opportunity for a refreshing tea break and to soak in the ethnic culture of the journey. Dharchula, with its unique position on the India-Nepal border, is spread out along the banks of the Kali River. The Kali River, also known as Sharda, originates from the eastern slopes of the Nanda Devi Massif and defines the Indo-Nepal border at Dharchula. A suspension bridge links India and Nepal, allowing nationals from both countries to cross freely. Walking along the Kali on the Nepali side, we could clearly see the PWD guest house, where we were staying on the Indian side. On the Nepali side, the bustling township of Kalanga has a thriving trade with Dharchula on the Indian side. Before proceeding further, we secured the inner line permits from the local magistrate in Dharchula. Mealtimes were a simple affair: fried eggs for breakfast and sandwiches rustled up with some vegetables for dinner. Keeping meals simple adds to the charm of adventure and holding the expenses down. The following morning, we took a shared taxi to Sobla. Traveling along the Kali River on the Kailash Mansarovar road, we reached Tawaghat, where the Dhauli Ganga meets the Kali River. Leaving the Kali at Tawaghat, we continued westward along the Dhauli Ganga, passing the stunning Kanchayoti waterfall and the Dhauli Ganga hydro project, finally reaching Sobala. Despite the road's poor condition, we were able to persuade the taxi driver to go a further 5 kilometers and drop us at Dar. The mesmerizing rugged landscape and our first sightings of majestic Himalayan peaks helped in keeping the mind off the growing discomfort and pain. With increasing pain, doubts were raised on whether it would be wiser to return to Dharchula and return home. However, after a brief discussion, we decided to continue, hoping that the discomfort would work itself out. The trail from Dar was broad and well-defined, cutting into the mountainside of the narrow Darma Valley. As we traveled further up the valley, the trail narrowed as it followed the contours of the mountainside. In several places, as it cuts across the rocky face, it tapered off into a mere thread of a trail, forcing us to walk single file. To our dismay, we encountered several army personnel with mules descending from their high camp at Sela. Upon seeing us coming uphill, the mules halted, blocking the path and refusing to budge. It was a stalemate. After much coaxing by their handlers, the mules moved along, pushing us precariously into the face of the mountainside, a risky maneuver on this very narrow trail. A small nudge of their heavy loads would have easily pushed us off the path and down into the river below. After passing through Earthing village, we pushed on for another 3 kilometers to reach Bungling. It was afternoon by the time we reached Bungling, and going any further made no sense, so we decided to spend the night at there. The local tea shop owner generously provided us with a room and meals. Our fellow travelers spent the afternoon basking in the sun and enjoying a game of cards. The night at Bungling was sleepless and painful. In the morning, the question arose on whether we should return to Dharchula and head home and seek medical assistance. But once again, we decided to resume our trek, unwilling to abandon a trip that had taken so much effort to plan and execute. The narrow trail continued to follow the contours of the hillside, with a steep fall to the river, but as we moved onto higher ground, the trail widened and leveled out into more open terrain, passing several waterfalls on the way. Occasional rocks along the trail offered a much-needed resting spot, while tiny rivulets trickling down through the undergrowth provided an opportunity to refill our water bottles. The Darma River originates near the Sino-Indian border. As it flows southward, it meets the Lhasa Yangtze at Tidang. Further south, it converges with the Nyuli Yangtze stream, which flows from the Panchachuli East Glacier. The Darma River, now called the Dhauli Ganga, continues to flow down the Darma Valley towards Tawagat, where it merges with the Kali River.
As we came closer to Sela village, the trail meandered through pastoral lands, dotted with grazing flocks of sheep and goats, and passing several large waterfalls which provided a stunning sight. Going further, the trail wound through a large boulder field to finally reach the campsite on the outskirts of Sela village. A couple of rest houses offered lodging and meals for trekkers. A mandatory registration of trekking permits is required at the ITBP camp. The main Sela village is perched along the hillside on the opposite side of the river.
Unfortunately, the nagging discomfort and pain over the last several days developed into a medical emergency, forcing us to abandon our trek and retrace our steps from Sela. In one long push, we retraced our steps of the last couple of days, with a brief lunch halt at Bungling. We reached Sobla by evening. We were incredibly fortunate to have the help of this gentleman Netaji, sitting in the center in the photo, who helped arrange a taxi from Sobla to Dharchula. Upon reaching Dharchula, we rushed directly to the local hospital. Netaji's assistance in handling the emergency by rallying the hospital staff, and the local chemist was a lifesaver. We will always be grateful to him for this. The next day, he arranged for a taxi to take us to Delhi. Leaving Dharchula at 4 a.m. and with non-stop driving, a remarkable feat by our driver, we reached Delhi airport by 11 p.m. As we were running short on funds and highly inflated airfares, a friend in Mumbai booked us on a flight for the next morning. After spending an uncomfortable night on the benches at the airport, we flew back to Mumbai the next day.
Though our journey undertaken in 2010 was cut short, the memories and experiences we gathered were priceless. I believe that in 2020 a road has been constructed all the way to Nagling, making it possible to travel from Dharchula to Nagling in a few hours by taxi. And from Nagling it's a few hours walk to Duktu, and then another couple of hours to the glacier point. Perhaps someday we may return to complete the trek to Panchachuli Glacier. We hope you enjoyed joining us on this journey, and if you did, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and check out our other 2 in the Hills videos for more travel and adventure.